Today's poem is On Death, from The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. I've been asked by Anne Julie Young to comment on this poem. Anne Julie belongs to that most precious caste of people in our community, being a nurse and an artist. I haven't been out clapping, but I have been berating as fiercely as I can those disgusting politicians who clapped and jeered when the government defeated a motion to remove the cap from nurses' pay. Of course, it's in their pay packet that all our frontline workers should have tangible proof of appreciation. Most of our political caste have no idea what moves skilled folk to work to protect and improve the lives of their fellow citizens, instead of devising ways to dupe and profit from them. Hell will freeze over before they provide the financial remuneration that keeps frontline workers comfortably free of anxiety and recognises the extraordinary courage that they call up to go into work each day. As I fear I will upset most of my Stroud listeners, and no doubt others, by my comments, I shall save them till after I've read the poem, so folk can avoid listening to my lengthy discourse, if they choose. Except Anne Julie, of course. She has to listen, as it's all her fault. On Death. Then Almitra spoke, saying, "We would ask now of death." And he said, "You would know the secret of death. But how shall you find it unless you seek it in the heart of life? The owl, whose night-bound eyes are blind unto the day, cannot unveil the mystery of light. If you would indeed behold the spirit of death, open your heart wide unto the body of life. For life and death are one, even as the river and the sea are one. In the depth of your hopes and desires lies your silent knowledge of the beyond. And like seeds dreaming beneath the snow, your heart dreams of spring. Trust the dreams, for in them is hidden the gate to eternity. Your fear of death is but the trembling of the shepherd when he stands before the king whose hand is to be laid upon him in honour. Is the shepherd not joyful beneath his trembling, that he shall wear the mark of the king? Yet is he not more mindful of his trembling? For what is it to die but to stand naked in the wind and to melt into the sun? And what is it to cease breathing but to free the breath from its restless tides, that it may rise and expand and seek God unencumbered? Only when you drink from the river of silence shall you indeed sing. And when you have reached the mountain top, then you shall begin to climb. And when the earth shall claim your limbs, then shall you truly dance. Before I begin what I expect to be a controversial critique, I would like to lay out some of my credentials. I hope at this stage in the project I don't need to prove further my love of poetry, nor that my admittedly untutored taste is omnivorous. Also, and I know this is suspiciously like some of my best friends' assertions, but I have a very dear friend, Brian Patterson, who loves Gibran's writing and, in fact, has narrated and sung beautiful recordings of The Prophet for audiobook productions. One of the abiding delights of poetry is that, however precise and well chosen its words and imagery, it leaves room for the reader to shape it to fit their own heads. It's a quality poetry shares with music. Each can become personal anthems, become waymarkers in people's lives, and take on esoteric meaning that the poet cannot have known or necessarily have desired. Brevity and ambiguity are its stock in trade. Both are the polar opposite of, for example, the prenuptial agreement that Trump's practiced lawyers doubtless confect. My English teacher used to encourage us to find suitcase words. These, he explained, were words into which you could fit lots of other words. I don't think he would have approved of how long-winded my writing became, but I've been strongly influenced by his emphasis on meaning. Poems are an entire multi-storied emporium of suitcases. Ambiguity is never sufficient, however. If that were the case, then the world's greatest poets would be writers of horoscopes for daily newspapers. The contents of each suitcase must be thoroughly doused in truth. Exactly what I mean by truth is another long essay in its own right, so I propose to illustrate my meaning perversely by exploring what I think is untrue, obscure, or lacking meaning in this Gibran poem on death. Firstly, its tone. There is a sermonizing grandiloquence in the writing, a detached, superior sort of loftiness that is often adopted by people who perform in pulpits. It is intensely irritating, especially because it brooks no ordinary discussion, having already declared its ground to be off limits to common discourse. Secondly, the language itself is distressed to mimic age and add the presumed weight of credence inherent in things antique. Gibran was an American who had emigrated as a child from the Lebanon, and The Prophet was published in 1923. This was an era when Al Capone was at his most active. This would not remotely be the way Gibran would write to his publisher or speak to his greengrocer. This is a device used by makers of epics, from Spartacus through Gandalf to Ned Stark. No one is coming, they cometh. Yea, lo, or see how cometh he hither with 12 dark riders. Once tuned into this epic affectation, it becomes risible. As with tone, its purpose is to make utterances seem old and wise, glittering things drawn from an ancient mystical wellspring. And so, on death. The secret of death is found in the heart of life. Really? The owl whose night-bound eyes are blind unto the day cannot unveil the mystery of light. But owls see perfectly well in daylight, and light itself was well understood by science in the 1920s. What is the spirit of death? How can you open your heart to the body of life? What does life and death, as rivers and the sea, mean? And what is your silent knowledge of beyond? The first 6 lines the prophet utters are exactly like horoscopes. There's no inherent truth or poetic insight in them. They rely for meaning upon the reader supplying it. The reader must believe that the spirit of death is a thing, that hearts can be opened to the body of life, that somewhere in your unconscious resides knowledge of beyond. None of these are insightful, poetic allusions. They're images spilt out as bait, much as the clairvoyant would do, relying on someone in the audience to declare, "Yes, oh God, it's Arthur, how is he? Is Mary with him? And where did he put the key to the cabinet that Auntie Mabel gave us?" The first purely poetic line is, "And like seeds dreaming beneath the snow, your heart dreams of spring." Here we can go along with all the elements of the simile, despite neither seeds nor heart being capable of dreaming, because the meaning is clear and it doesn't stretch credulity to the point of rupture. You don't have to have faith. It is nevertheless a hackneyed simile. Sadly, in the next line, things fall apart again. The gate to eternity hides in the dreams. Then a shepherd trembles before a king intent on touching him and bestowing a mark, but the shepherd is preoccupied with his nerves. Then dying is like standing naked in the wind and melting into the sun, and ceasing to breathe allows a person to seek God. Drinking from a river of silence makes you sing. Atop the mountain you start to climb, and you dance best when legless. The latter is certainly true in my case. All the foregoing imagery, the kings and shepherds of the Bible, North American First Nation traditions of hanging their dead in trees or laying them on platforms, exposed to the elements, and Hindu cremation rituals are all stirred into the oxymoronic mix. They are the triggers, the points at which authenticity appears to shine out, the point at which you realise it's Uncle Arthur. Anyway, if this mystical minestrone brings just one person comfort, I'm all for it. Just be careful how you type the word prophet, because in the hidden, darker, deeper reaches of your spell check lies the industrial truth.